I'm going to hold your feet to the fire, but you didn't answer my question. The question was, are there specific positions for 2026-27?
Yeah, so for 26 right now, you're really putting me on the spot.
John O'Reilly, head men's soccer coach at University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, the Green Bay Phoenix. What's going on, man? How you doing today?
I'm great. Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. What we want to know, John, is what are going to be your needs for 2026-27? What do those athletes look like? Technically, tactically, what are those assets that they have? What are some of those X factors that you're looking for within a player? So on and so forth.
I've been a head coach 2 years. Last 2 years, we played a 4-2-3-1, but I'm pretty open formationally, honestly. I don't think I'm like, I'm not one of the coaches that's like, I have to play this or I won't be able to do it. So, I would say right now we're kind of looking in the 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, but I'm always like open to change with that.
And is that based on your players that you currently have?
Yeah, I would say that our formation probably is primarily dictated by our roster as opposed to me having like a dedicated formation that I'm only comfortable playing.
Yeah, so within that recruitment process, are you going into the process saying, okay, we're going to line up in a 4-2-3-1 and we're looking for some athletes to fit those roles? Or are you saying, no, I want to find the best player in that position and then we'll tweak and we'll move forward and we'll just change things as we go?
Yeah, I would say it's probably a little bit of both, right? It's hard to, especially if you're has some success in a formation, your current players are in that formation, you probably it affects how you watch kids, right? You're going to think like, would this guy be a good replacement for X player who's graduating? So I think it's hard. It would be hard to say it doesn't influence your decision, your current formation. But I would say the caveat to that would be like, yeah, if I see a player, he's a really good fit for our system or our style of play as opposed to our system, I'm not going to be like, oh, we can't recruit him because he's whatever it might be, like he's an inverted winger and we play, whatever it might be that would kind of take him out of that sort of more narrow view and like kind of try to make it think like, okay, well, maybe he doesn't fit what we have right now, but if we tweak a few things, we could adjust a little bit to make it work, and depending on where he plays as well. It's like, all right, you see a kid playing center back in a 3, it's like, okay, well, it's great that we know he can play center back in a 3, but if we play at a 4, would he be okay playing in a 2, like things like that. But I don't think we try not to. If we like a kid, we try not to be like, oh, he's in a 3-4-3 and we play a 4-2-3-1, we can't recruit him, right? Like I think kids are adaptable now, and I think everybody, I think that's one of the benefits of youth soccer growing as it has. Like kids are more open to playing different shapes, so they're not tied to like, oh, I have to be a center back in a 2, or I've only played in a 2 forward system or whatever it might be.
Cool, makes sense. Yeah, so 10-15 minutes left in the game, you're up 1-0. What are you doing formationally? Are you staying the same or are you changing it up?
Probably staying pretty close to the same. I think like probably depends on the opponent, right? You might have like, we had a player last year who was kind of like our backup right back. Our starting right back was like 5'8". Our backup right back was 6'4". You're up 1-0. He's 6'4". He's pretty athletic. The opponent's going to be heavily relying on set pieces, long throws, corners, things like that. We made that substitution a few times, up 1-0. And that didn't change the formation. It just kind of was a personnel change. And then anything else would be, yeah, maybe, do you want fresh legs wide because they're going to be a little bit more, not more defensive minded, but they're going to be fresher so they can come on and maybe do a little bit more work than maybe the guy that's played 60 or 70 minutes. So I would say it's more, wouldn't make a massive formational change, and more just probably be personnel based. Do you have your current 10 is maybe more a technical guy? Could you put a more athletic 10 on for the last 15 minutes to help just press and help us set pieces? But nothing, we don't have like we don't switch to a 5 back for the last 15 minutes. We don't make any massive changes. It would probably just be more personnel and depending on kind of what we have available to sub back in or on the bench that day, depending on injuries, we might make some personnel changes, but nothing massive as far as system or kind of our formation change. Maybe just like maybe tell your outside backs not to fly forward as much. I mean, that'd probably be the big one.
Guys, stay home. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So same scenario, but you're up 1-0. What I mean, I'm sorry, you're down 1-0.
Down
What,
1-0.
what
Yeah.
is, yeah, down one
Yeah.
nothing.
Down
What does
one
that go?
zero. I would say that probably would where we would maybe make more changes, especially in the 4-2-3-1. You kind of have a double six or a 6 and an 8, whatever you want to call it. Maybe you bring on a more attacking guy in the middle. Do you have, maybe if your outside backs have played 70 minutes, 70, 75 minutes, do you have kind of guys that are able to come on and maybe give a little bit more from an attacking standpoint? Would you think like instead of a 10, would you bring on another 9, like things like that? I think that's would probably same thing, not really changing the formation, but probably some more personnel changes to just get a little bit more attacking, kind of the opposite of tell your outside backs to stay home. It's more like, okay, like now you got to both go forward and kind of just committing probably heavier numbers and more numbers forward in that situation really would be the big thing. And then just some slight personnel changes to kind of create that.
Yeah, I know we spoke about during the flow of the season a little bit different, but when we last touched base, you were going to the playoffs and you had to make a decision, right? You had your starting outside back versus an outside back that was coming off the bench. However, that secondary player had some assets physically that you
Yeah.
thought would bode well against the competition, and you ended up making that change,
Yep.
and it worked out really well for you.
Yeah, we did that. It was like our second to last game of the regular season, playing a very direct opponent. It was this kid we spoke about before. He's just very athletic, 6'4" outside back, really good on defensive set pieces, really good in the air. And yeah, I mean, I think it wasn't his only start, but it was one of his few starts of the season. It was one of the most important games of the season. And we just, we recognized that, on that for that opponent on that day, that having that size and athleticism in the back was important. And it wasn't like the guy who had been starting all season was upset by it. He kind of understood it.
Yeah.
And realized that was going to be in that game, that was going to give us the best opportunity to win. And luckily it worked out pretty well as, that guy had like, 6 or 7 like heading clearances on long throws and corners and stuff like that. So, it ended up being a good decision.
Yeah. Defensively, are we pressing? Are we pressing for 90 minutes hardcore? What are your beliefs on that? Do you play with a line of confrontation where you sit back a little bit? What is the player that's going to fit into your system defensively, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can press for you can try to press for 90 minutes, but it's probably not going to work. But
I think some
yeah, we're
coaches
definitely
try.
yeah, we're definitely a pressing. Yeah, we definitely want to press. It's definitely a key component to our kind of like defensive tactics is to press teams and kind of create turnovers in the attacking half. And I think our guys do a good job of buying into it. Obviously, like it depends on the situation, right? Can you press? And that's a lot of the stuff that we spend time on defensively outside of like defending in our defensive half. It's like, okay, you turn the ball over, you have heavy numbers forward. Can you press? Or is it a moment where you just need to kind of drop in, regroup, get behind the ball and slow the opponent down? So that's something that, we kind of emphasize a lot in training, knowing that we are setting numbers forward, right? We might lose the ball in a vulnerable situation. So it's like, what do you do in that situation? Do you decide to repress and go, or is it, hey, our 9 is in the 6, like next to the goalkeeper, cross got blocked, or wingers on the end line? Like, how can we like who's going to press? Like the key triggers in the press are that kind of front three. If 2 of the 3 of them aren't in the play, all right, is that next line just saying, hey, like it's better for me to drop off, slow it down, or is it, or are we in a better scenario where we can repress and kind of get after the opponent and hopefully cause a turnover? So it's situation based, but yeah, we definitely emphasize the press. We don't really have a line of kind of like the line of confrontation is like where the ball is, right? We're not like,
Sure.
oh, we got to drop off. They have the ball. It's a goal kick. We're dropping off to X spot. Like we're kind of like, all right, we're going to press up to the 18, see what they do. And then, yeah, same thing, like out of the run of play. If it, is a long ball or they play back to their goalkeeper, we're kind of going to be set with where their back line is as opposed to like having a spot that we start on.
Got it. Got it. The main reason I wanted to get together with you and the coaches that are going to come after you is because there's a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of unknowns within college recruitment for
Yeah.
male and female student athletes, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with college coaches like yourself. This is your job, this is your career, and you need to keep some things close to the vest, right? But my goal right now is to try to figure out for 26, 27, what do those player prototypes, those specific positions look like that you guys are focusing on? And then what are the attributes that those players have? So a family can come on, listen for 10 minutes and get a good understanding if they should put some time and effort into reaching out to you or reaching out to your coaching staff. So that's what I'd love to learn. What are you guys looking for next season? And what are some of those assets that those players have?
Yeah, so as far as like, not that we're like 26 is pretty close to done. So, it'd have to be kind of like a special player that fits a specific need right now for a 26 player. But, just speaking in general, we're kind of getting started on the 27 class, and kind of walking through a little bit of like what we looked for in our 26 class. Like, I think for us, possession's important. We like to build, we want to play, like, so those technical attributes often, it's not that they completely outweigh the athletic attributes, but I think in our program, when we're out recruiting, right, we do
Right.
value possessing the ball, keeping the ball, doing those things when we have it. So, we definitely, from an attacking standpoint, right, we want guys that, it's not like we're not going to recruit a guy if their coach isn't allowing them to play at the back or they're not kind of playing a possession style soccer, but we want to make sure that those guys have the ability to play in that style because, our defenders are going to have the ball under pressure in difficult areas of the field. So, we want guys that are comfortable under pressure that can play out, and kind of find those passes and aren't just relying upon only playing the long ball. And I think that kind of flows into the rest of the group too. Same thing with midfielders, right? Our central midfielders, like, obviously most central midfielders, that's an attribute that they pretty much all have, like playing in possession, playing out of pressure, being comfortable, in 1v1 situations. So, I think that will flow into the midfield as well. And then, from an attacking standpoint, right? We still, because we are playing, we want guys that aren't just, strictly 1v1. It's like all they do is go 1v1. Yes, of course you have to go 1v1. You have to attack. You have to be good in the final third. But like we do possess the ball in a majority of the area of the field. So we want guys that are comfortable doing that, pretty much anywhere on the field, right? We're gonna look for passes. We're gonna look to play out of pressure. So, I think that's a key attribute from the technical standpoint. And we talked a little about the pressing thing too. So,
Right.
we like to see guys that are, willing to put the work in, on the other side of the ball. It's, unfortunately, in soccer, you're not going to have the ball the entire time. You're going to have to defend. You're going to have to press. You're going to have to, you have to work to get the ball back. So, we just like when we see that, in a player when they're out there, they lose the ball. They're not putting their head down. They're not tracking back. They're working on both sides of the ball because, at the end of the day, like that's a huge piece of the game, and I think it's really important. So, we want guys that are, comfortable and willing, I guess more so willing to do it, right? It's kind of just a decision if you want to put the work in and press and try to win the ball back. So, I would say that's a piece of it too. And then we talked a little like the athleticism stuff, right? It's Division I college
Yeah.
soccer. There's a
Yeah.
kind of a level of athleticism that is necessary to play at this level. So, yeah, we value the technical side, but obviously we have to factor in the athleticism side, right? We can't just say, oh man, he's amazing on the ball, but he runs a 5.40, like, okay, or whatever you want
Like
to say
me.
for a
Yeah, yeah,
metric,
yeah, yeah.
speed metric, exactly. Right. There does have to be, you do have to factor that in, right? Because you're not always going to be on the ball. You're gonna have to, when we're attacking, you're gonna have to make runs, you're gonna have to move, right? When we lose it, you're
Yep.
gonna have to be able to work and press. So, we do factor in that athleticism. I would say the size thing, right? It's probably more position specific, right? Height.
Right. Getting
It's
into
hard to
those.
play with a
Yeah.
5'5" center back, but we're not like, oh my god, we need our two center backs to be 6'5".
Yeah.
We need our outside backs to be 5'11". We need our six to be 6'2", whatever it is. It's kind of more, um, are they a good fit?
Right.
Do they, maybe you want to balance the midfield out. Maybe you don't want three guys that are 5'7", 5'8", but if you have one guy that's around, a bigger guy, you can help a little bit with set pieces and stuff like that. But, I would say it's not the size is probably the one that outside of probably center backs is something that probably we do a little bit differently. We're not overly concerned, with like height. I think for us, it's probably because of our style of play, because we want to keep the ball, right? That's kind of what I always joke. It's like, well, ideally the ball's on the ground when we have it, so we're okay. And then they just have to be willing to work and fight. On the if we do play a little bit more direct team, you just have to be willing to kind of buy into like, oh, I might have to mark a guy that's a little bit taller than me on set pieces, or I might have to, challenge for a header that I know I'm going to lose, but I'm still going to make it difficult, and then try to win the second ball. So I guess that would be kind of how we would phrase it, as opposed to like, oh, you can't win a header, you're only 5'7", you can't win a head ball. It'd be more how do you kind of make yourself impactful despite not really being able to physically do it.
Yeah, and I think it's a great way to look at it through that lens. I think it also speaks about these intangibles, right? Like
Yeah.
these things that are really hard to quantify,
Mhm.
that every single parent out there in the world brings up first, right? Like, my kid is the best kid in the world. My kid has a 4.0. My kid is,
Yeah.
giving homeless people $2 every time we see a homeless person, right? And it's like, cool, I get that.
Yeah.
But those are some of the intangibles that they're looking for. And maybe that's a way to measure them. Do you look at it through that lens in that recruitment process? Like, if you're seeing a guy who's loses the ball making chase and busting his ass to get back, or her ass, that speaks a little bit
Yeah.
to that, right?
Yeah. And like, you want, every coach, it's like, it's kind of like, it's like a joke. It's like it's kind of like a shit, like a pendulum. Like, you don't want, no coach wants guys that are going to be guys or girls are going to be an issue off the field, right? They're going to be an issue academically, like, right? That is a piece. We are a college athletic team. Like, you got to go to class. You got to keep up with your grades. You got to keep up with your schoolwork, right? So it's kind of like, you have to, it's just like everything. You're building a team. You have to balance that. Some guys, the talent level might be like, okay, we're willing to take a risk on this guy. Maybe his grades aren't the best, or, maybe you saw him play and he was really good offensively, but he wasn't really doing the work defensively. But you're kind of like, all right, well, we're willing to work with this guy. We think in our culture and our system, we can bring that out of him or her. So, I think that, every coach, it's like, I think that's what is hard, right? Parents are like, well, I don't understand. Like, I watched X player play and he didn't do the things that John just said, but it's like, but he scored 3 goals, right? So it's like, okay, well, yeah. Hopefully now you understand, why you would take a chance on somebody that maybe didn't fit your kind of prototype. And I think that, I think that's the piece, in my opinion, that's probably you mentioned it's the hardest, right? It's like, we're building a team of 28 players, so not everybody has to be a perfect fit for exactly what we need. And if you tried to do that, it'd be difficult. So you kind of have to, like, there's certain things you have to be willing to be flexible with, in order to make up the group. And that's the piece. It's like, you could be a perfect fit for our 26 class, and you could be the same player and not be a good fit for the 27 class, depending on what we brought in and things like that. So trying to, like, create this, like, super clear path is next to impossible, because it changes, the team changes, the needs will change, depending on recruiting, how guys are doing, like, how the development's going within the current group. So it's just kind of one of these things where it's like, you want to I guess as a parent, you want to look for the perfect answer, but the reality is it's never going to be exactly the same, depending on the team, the coach, what the coach needs or wants in that specific recruiting class or year. You look for these kind of generalities that help shape your recruiting process. But at the end of the day, to be like, this is exactly what we need, he checks every single box, right? That's just probably unrealistic, and those boxes might change depending on what your group is like.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. One of my biggest pet peeves is when someone's interviewing an assistant coach, a head coach, and I'm not trying to shape your answer, I promise. But one of my biggest pet peeves is undoubtedly when we ask a college coach, what are you looking for in a student athlete? And the first thing they go into is, well, they need to be a really good kid. They need to be really good academically. Like, bro, they need to be able to can play at this level, right? Excuse my language. So, like, can you try to provide me with a real answer to that question? Is there one trait that you look for in an athlete or in a player, one sort of positional prototype, if you will? What asset? I know it might change, positionally, but what would you say to that? Like, as opposed to maybe some other coaches that don't answer the way I want them to.
give the whatever the book by the book.
Yeah, the old runaround,
Yeah,
right? Like,
like, yeah, I just read it. I could read it off the piece of paper in front of me.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, just trying to think back, where the last event we're at was like the Demos Next Fest event in Phoenix. Like, I think your big kind of like big answer to that question, I think, you want to, I think the reality is, regardless of to give it like make it non-position specific, right? You kind of want guys that are, positively impacting the game, right? You're watching the game and they're doing something, right? That's not that it's different, but it's like they're doing something that's changing the game, right? So if it's an attacking guy, he's creating chances, scoring goals. If it's a 10, he's putting guys into positions to score goal. Whatever that positional prototype is, like, okay, winger, he's going 1v1, he's causing problems. The right back, the left winger is causing the right back to like look over his coach, be like, hey, I may need to come off. Like, I think that's center backs, winning whatever it is, winning tackles, winning headers, playing diagonals, whatever it might be for that position, you're kind of like, okay, this guy is already, maybe he's not having a perfect game. Maybe he's lost the ball a couple times. Maybe he's not, maybe he didn't score a goal. Even like a striker, it's like you can go watch a striker and he can have the greatest game of his life. He might not score, but
Yeah.
if he's creating chances, he's causing problems for the defense. He's keeping them on their toes. Like, okay, this is a guy that we think could be a good fit, center back, making tackles, comfortable 1v1, comfortable on the ball. So I think it's really kind of like that, ability to affect the outcome. And that's the thing. The hard thing about soccer is, there's 11 players on the field.
Right.
Not every game is going to be perfect, right? You might not, it's funny, like in the recruiting process, you talk to kids and they're like, I was so bad today. I missed 2 chances. Whatever. And it's like, well, from a coaching standpoint, right? When you're recruiting, it's like, well, I just want to see you create the chances. Obviously, over
Yeah.
time, you're gonna have to
I
score goals. You
we were
gotta
in
do
those
stuff
we
and
were
score
in
goals.
those
Like, yeah,
spots
can't go a whole
twice.
season with 0 goals. But like, I feel like kids sometimes are like, or a center back gets caught 1v1, he gets beat, kid scores a really good goal. He's like, oh man, I didn't play well. It's like, well, from a recruiting standpoint, it's like you did a lot of things right and you affected the game positively. So, yeah, from a our recruiting view of how a kid plays might be different than, maybe what a kid thinks or a parent thinks, like vice versa. The striker that misses goals, it's like, okay, you're a striker and you have 3 tap-ins from 3 yards out. That's great. But it's like somebody created that. It's great that you got there, but it's like maybe you didn't, maybe you lost the ball 25 times. You couldn't play back to goal. Like, there's a lot of factors that go into, kind of what you want from a player. But yeah, I mean, I would think like the answer is kind of like, are they making a difference? Right? Are they, defensively, are they, making good tackles, winning headbutt, whatever it might be, from that standpoint. And then yeah, like attacking, it's just like, are you kind of like just causing problems, right? You're whatever it is, whether you're, a 10 and you're playing balls behind, you're creating chances, attackers, you're going 1v1. I think, you kind of hope, you'd hope that, when you go to watch a kid, that they're having an impact on the game that's positive.
Yeah. When I was at Florida Atlantic University and when I was recruiting, I was always really aware of like my cognitive biases, right? Like we all have them. We all will look at a player that reminds us of a player who reminds us of, oh, that time. There's an emotional connection because you remember that time in your head when that
Yep.
kid, right, that you recruited, you're like, yo, this kid could be that kid.
Yeah.
So for me, it was always like looking at the energy, right? Like what energy are they bringing
Yeah.
to the pitch? And then, Gary Book, St. John's, now at Adelphi, he would tell me, Elliot, you're always on the wrong blade of grass, right? So I'd be like, okay, so now I'm looking for
Kids on the right blade of grass.
who's always on the right blade of grass, right? And I think a lot of times, and maybe you could just touch on this really quick, a lot of times you'll see, an outside back or a center back make a really incredibly timed slide tackle, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, wow, did you see that?
Yeah.
And from a coaching perspective, it's like, why did you need to make that
Yeah.
slide tackle? Why weren't you on that blade of grass better positioned, right? So
Yeah.
speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like, that's a funny one, right? I kind of referenced it before. It's like, as a parent, you might be like, oh my God, my son made this amazing, like, 30-yard recovery and this big slide tackle, and the whole U16 team was watching and they jumped up and they were clapping and all these things. And but there's also, like you said, there's the positional aspect of like, okay, well, why did you have to make were you too high? Did you read the play late? Were you not
Right.
in the right spot? And I think that like that's the side of it where it's like, as a coach or when you're recruiting as a coach, right? That's what you should hopefully be watching is like, okay, sometimes the best center back might be the guy that does the least, right? It's like the guy that's
Right.
staying on his feet, that's reading things, that's
Organizing.
organizing, stepping in before things happen, right? And as a parent, if you're not super knowledgeable about soccer, you might be like, well, little Billy didn't do anything. It's like, well, as a coach, it's like actually he did way more than the kid that had six tackles and blew up and got a yellow card because you know what I mean? It's intricacy, those little intricacies when you're watching. Hopefully, as a coach, you're looking for that. I think that's the hard part, right? That's the hard part as a player sometimes, or a parent, right? Those are a lot of the things are non like to the untrained eye are things that you probably wouldn't see. But like for us, it's important to see that, right? The winger who loses the ball, he tracks back. He maybe doesn't win it, but he puts a little pressure on the outside back that forces a faster pass, and then it's a turnover. Now the team gets the ball back. Like, if you're watching as a parent or whatever, you might be like, well, he didn't, actually the next guy won the ball, but the reality is that pressure and that work rate that he put in is what actually caused the turnover. So, there's a lot of those little things that I think are our job to see as well, and are hard to see from someone that maybe doesn't have like as extensive as a soccer background. So I think those things can be really difficult explaining, I guess, in the recruiting process, because there's not really a great way to like be like, well, it was 25 little things, not everybody wants like the it's like the microwave generation. Everybody wants the one thing. Well, he scored the goal, or he made the tackle, or he saved the PK, or whatever it might be for your position. Um, when the reality is, it's probably 50 small things that we're looking for.
Yeah, and that's what this is about, right? And
Yeah,
I think you defined it exceptionally well, and I think this is what parents need to
it's that
hear.
Lehigh education. Yeah,
Yeah, I know. How we both got in there, I have no idea.
check the
Um,
admissions records from 2002.
thank God I had a girlfriend at the time who was a genius, that allowed me to stay there. So a couple of things. One, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire, but she didn't answer my question. But the question was, are there specific positions for 2026-27? You don't need to give me all of them. Just give me one or two, right? If you
Yeah.
want to keep it
So yeah. So for 26 right now,
27, whatever. Yeah.
yeah, 26, it's probably possibly like one attacking guy. That could be a striker, could be a winger. We graduated a decent amount of attacking guys last year. We've got some guys coming in that we really like. Maybe we could bolster our attack a little bit. That's probably a kind of a circled area, I would say, on our recruiting board for 26. 27. Right, it's with the roster caps and I don't
Yeah.
know whatever graduation is now, exhaustion of eligibility. We graduate two attacking players, one center back. You're really putting me on the spot. But yeah,
That's an
I
interview.
think it's 4 or 5. But this is the thing. So it's like the eligibility versus
Sure.
we have guys that are seniors, but they have a year of eligibility. Are they going to stay here and exhaust it or whatever? But like the true seniors that are kind of like impact guys right now. Yeah, it's two attacking players, one center back off the top of my head, another attacking player that we're bringing in that will graduate. So yeah, so I would say it's probably for 27. It would be kind of more attacking heavy right now. And then that center back, we kind of feel like we have those solutions within the team. So it's not like we're going out there and being like, oh, we need a starting center back for 27. It's more
But
probably
they
maybe adding
got to
some.
show up.
Yeah, exactly. We got guys that are ready.
Yeah.
So, kind of add some depth there. And then, everything after that, it's like, retention, transfer portal, you kind of just don't know,
We're not
right? You
even
kind of like,
we're not
I
even
think
going to touch it.
those are
Yeah.
the simple ones where it's like they physically cannot play for the team next year.
Right.
They've played 4 years. They've had 4 years of eligibility. And then after that, it's kind of like, yeah, what do you, and then it's, even younger, some of the younger guys, like what are they going to do? Maybe if they're not getting enough playing time, are they going to consider transferring? So it's like, are you looking kind of more for like depth squad guys? But those are kind of more questions that will be answered, probably next fall when we get into 27.
Sure, sure. Well, thank you so much, man. I guess the way I would love to close is there anything about your program that differentiates you? Do you want to? I don't know if the right word is pitch, but is there
My
anything?
elevator pitch? You want my elevator pitch?
Yeah, let's give you. Yeah, what's your USP? What's your USP, bro?
Oh man, yeah. I mean, I think like what I like about our program, what we've been able to do the last couple of seasons is like we very much value, our style of play. I think that's very important to everything that we do in our program. We want to play the right way. We feel like kind of doing the little things and maybe making it at times harder, right? Like possession style soccer and kind of like we call it like a professional style where we're building out of the back, we're trying to possess, we're playing through pressure, right? That's harder. But at the end of the day, our goal is to develop players and kind of prepare them for, success in the college level and beyond. And I think that's a big kind of like the big piece of what we do and what we're trying to do is develop players so that they can, you know, get better as they in their time here, and then also be prepared to play at the next level.
Amazing, man. So what we do to close off, we just do 3 bumps into the 1, 2, 3. I'm kidding. There's no closing, bro.